And I was just like, no, no. Can you make out that my favorite pair has still not gone on a date? I am still maintaining this series, surprisingly. Even I'm very surprised. I'm fully invested. We are back with an episode recap of Stand By Me, my new favorite reality show or show in general. We are currently recapping episode 5 and 6. We left off at the remaining 4, which is Sujin, Youngkyu, Chebe, and Heejin crashing Hyeyeon and Sungho's date. We don't exactly pick up from there. We get a little backstory basically on how they reached there. So let's get into it. We start is actually where the 4 are basically like in the house after all the dating people have gone out, and they're basically relaxing. They decide to go for a grocery run. But before that, they also get the notification about that messaging thing that was mentioned in the days before, where that messaging app, which is there in the phones, you can only message 7 times in one day and it resets at 7 o'clock. So they thought, since they're all in the living room, why not just send a message to, anyone who they choose. It doesn't have to be a person that they like, anyone. Sujin sent one to Hyeyeon. Heejin also sent one to Hyeyeon. Youngkyu sent one to Sungho. So you must be wondering, who did Chebe send it to? Because we didn't see it in the previous episode. So surprise, even I was quite surprised. He sends his to Youngkyu. Chebe is, I think, like per se, aside from Heejin, because he's starting to get a little closer to Youngkyu because they do share a bed. And in general, he also mentions how Youngkyu is more, how do I say, like he cares. Like in general, he's a caring person, so he really liked that side about him. So he ended up messaging him. As I mentioned before, they would be going on a grocery run for supplies for the house and everyone. And again, like 100 steps ahead, my girl Sujin going for who she likes. They have to get ready for the grocery run and all, right? So she goes to Heejin's room being like, yo, is anyone there? Can I just relax around here or whatever? While Heejin is doing her makeup in general, she just having a conversation with her, basically getting to know more about her stance about the people in the house. And then they play a little game of intuition, and that is when we learn Heejin has terrible intuition. My god, I got so frustrated watching this scene. Basically, she ends up guessing that Sujin, first she ends up guessing that she has a crush on Sungho. She's just like, God no. I'm just like, girl, same. Heejin tries to go ahead and guess more. She's just like, at this point, if she just kept giving all the names of the participants, she would find out that Sujin is interested in Heejin. So even Heejin, Sujin also just like, how about we don't do this? Because ultimately it will just come on me only, right? Another interesting thing that ends up happening in this is that my self-deprecating teen, my ideal type Heejin, I feel like she's self-deprecating in the sense of she doesn't think that Sujin would like someone like her, so they're destined to be sisters. And I was just like, no, that doesn't do it. Don't sister block me for frick's sake. Queen, no, she wants you. So they proceed to go on the grocery run. You can see each other's personalities coming out. They do become closer because, of course, Heejin is a person who really listens and cares about a person's preferences. For example, Hyeyeon, especially for people she likes, but in general, I feel Hyeyeon had mentioned that she likes jellies, so she just let me get a jelly. In fact, the jellies were not easily visible, or it was not in plain sight, so she actively sought it out for her. So also, I know these videos are basically a love letter towards Heejin, but it just solidifies how much more I really like people like Heejin, because even they mentioned how Heejin is really cut to cut in the sense of she was a really leader kind of personality. She was instructing what to do, what to take, to the point. And I really like people like that, because I myself, I'm very dilly-dallying, me exposing my ideal type on the internet. So after the grocery run, they return to the house, and that's where we get a new mission, a special mission. They get to see photos of the dates that are currently going on, so they can choose which one. So that's the special mission, that which one would you like to see. So in a surprise twist, all of them end up choosing Sungho and Hyeyeon, because actually it was obviously a mix of some of them wanted to know how the date was going on for reasons. Aside from that, they had actually taken extra clothes because yeah, they had like 3 outfit changes in one date. So they were curious, are they actually going to the beach or for surfing? Tensions were rising because, as mentioned, Heejin, both her love interests were going on the same date. So she was a little perturbed about that, and she got a little more perturbed after seeing these pictures. Queen, just come to my girl, come to Sujin, come to me. So Sujin also notices how Heejin is a little bummed out, and she's also a little bummed out because, of course, the person that she likes is bummed out. So she's the best. But yeah, so even she was a little bummed out. And in fact, I love one statement that she says. It's not exactly verbatim, but she basically says, I wish Chebe and Hyunkyu would get out of the room because I just want to have a date with her. But yeah, on a side note, since they all ended up choosing the that couple for seeing the pictures, they all just like, let's crash the date. And additional to this, after this, we also get a follow up on Yoonjae and Jinwoo's date. During the date, I realized that there were a lot of talking about others and their love interests rather than about each other. Like they were just like, who's your love interest? Who's your like in the house? Who do you think is this? Who do you think is that? Not what are your interests? What can we talk about? More like more interesting people in the house, let's talk about them. And then even Yoonjae addresses it that with Jinwoo, it was more of a conversation between friends rather than a first date. So another interesting thing that happened is Yoonjae actually got a message. Jinwoo didn't, and he was salty about it, giving me another red flag. But I'm not going to open that can of worms. Yoonjae got it from my girl Sujin. So even I was a little confused as to why she sent this message. So the message was that, oh, let me know how your date went, and yeah. So as I have mentioned before, the remaining 4 would be crashing Sungho's and Hyeyeon's date. So they were getting ready for that. And again, my girl Sujin, I know she'll probably come off as really annoying to some people, but a girl knows her priorities. Girl knows what she wants. I respect that. So she basically asked Heejin for advice, like, does this look nice? Is this looking prettier? And all. And she literally says to the camera, being like, I hope she gets it now. I'm being really obvious. Please get it now. I'm just like, girl, save. But to be fair, I would probably be that idiot who does not get signs. So another interesting thing is there are a lot of things to do in the house. For example, there are cookbooks, magazines, games and all. Because actually the participants' phones, like their phones have been taken and they've been handed over phones by the crew. Hence the special messaging apps that they have. Right? So the remaining 4 also play like a game of Jenga. So they decided, let's do penalties. Basically, for every round, whoever loses, they need to do something. So the first round was lost by Yoongkyu, so he was dared to send a message to anyone via the messaging app. Anyone, just send a hello and a selfie of yourself. So later we get to know is because Sujin loses the next round of Jenga, so she also has to message someone via her phone. 2 explanations end up happening because of it. Number 1, Yoongkyu sent his message to Sujin because I genuinely forgot that Sujin and Yoongkyu were the first date to happen. I genuinely freaking forgot. I'm just like, why did he send it to her? How do I say? If you don't want to directly send it to your crush, you would send it to someone who you are at least acquainted with. Since she was the first date for him, easy send it to her, right? Secondly, we get an explanation as to why Sujin sent a message to Yoonjae. And lastly was, at least shown on camera, was Heejin getting the penalty, where Heejin had to state who she liked the least or like least compatible whatever in her own gender. She mentioned that Yoonjae is probably the least on her list, which to my girl Sujin is music to her ears, because she literally mentioned also that that means either Hyeyeon or I am 1 or 2 and I just need to work harder. They all crash the date and Heejin is the last to come out after crashing the date because she obviously does not want to be there. The 6 of them have dinner over there itself, and the remaining 2, Yoonjae and Jinwoo, return to the house. And it was obvious, even they know it, that the date didn't really go well. It didn't go bad per se. It's that sort of, again, they were talking as friends. They weren't really talking as interests in each other. They were going to catch up, but it's like a mission came up where now this is the most interesting. I genuinely had so much fun in this part is because something called anonymous chat rooms were introduced. Each member would be getting an individual chat room where you could enter anonymously and you could ask them any questions. However, there were some restrictions. For example, the time limit. There were only 3 minutes for the entire chat room. There was also the time limit of entering a chat room where you were given like a window to enter, and after that it closes. And obviously throughout the show, it's kind of been implied that you can't really tell the person that you like them. So this chat room can basically be the place to get to know a person's likes or dislikes, or if they've gone on a date recently, how did it go? Hopefully it didn't go well. So another important thing is the person whose chat room it is, their name will not be anonymous there, because basically you're targeting your questions to someone. It will not be anonymous. It is their chat room. You can ask them any question you want. Like, it's kind of like that. We begin with Heejin, and Heejin's chat room is joined by 3 people, namely Sujin, of course, Youngkyu, and Yunche. Sujin is mostly, I feel, doing the back and forth. Youngkyu comes across as a person who gets his question answered by other people. So she's pretty much set on the I do like 2 girls and 1 guy. So at least Sujin's just like, hey, at least I'm in one of those 2 girls. That's good. So next we move on to is Youngkyu's room. So since Heejin's chat room has like deactivated as of now, Sujin goes to Youngkyu's room to, I think like scout out the competition and just she asks questions like, oh, who are you interested in? And what is like a deal breaker for you? And Youngkyu says that personality is definitely a deal breaker for me, as in personality matters more than the visuals, obviously. However, we also see that this is where we get to know that there is a limit, as in like that window that I talked about, that you can only enter during a set time period. After that, it closes, and the people talk within the chat room. So Chebe is a little bummed out about not joining. He wanted to join, but I feel like he was a little scared, apprehensive in general. So because Yonkyu sleeps right next to him, so his fingers were moving a lot clearly. So he felt a little bummed out about not joining in there. So next, the chat room that is open is of Yunche, and unfortunately, no one joins Yunche's chat room, which obviously she is a little bummed out about it. She thinks that, oh, am I unpopular? And I think it is bound to happen a little, because she comes off a little too cold. Like, there's a difference between mysterious and cold. I understand having walls up, but it's a little too up, and especially for a reality show. It's a production in the end, right? Then we move on to Hyeyeon. So basically, when you enter these anonymous chat rooms, you can choose your names yourself. You can take 2 ways from this. One, you can make it a name that it's really obvious to the person whose chat room it is, or you can like be a diversion kind of. So example, Hyeyeon's room is open and Heejin and Sungho join in. So Heejin chooses a name which is kind of like she mentions how she takes vitamins a day. So her name was a pillar day, which Hyeyeon immediately gets. However, Sungho chooses the name Soda, which puts Hyeyeon off. In the sense, she thinks that it's Sujin because of a mention that she kind of likes drinking soda and some kind of alcohol. So Heejin ends up asking a kind of important question where she asks, like, out of the people that you like, what is the percentage basically? So she mentions that it's a 65 to 35 right now, and it's kind of obvious who the 65 is, and if it's not, it's Sungho. Duh. So next is Jinwoo's anonymous chat room. Surprise, Sungho joins it. And it's honestly like they also know that it's each other, so it's pretty casual conversation between them. And after that was Chebe, and Yunchi enters the chat room. So it is more out of like, camaraderie, like in the sense of, so Yunchi knows that feeling of like you feeling down that no one enters your room, and it was like kind of, it might lead to that situation. So Yunche entered Chebe's room to, just cheer him on in general. So it was a nice, thoughtful move from her end. So Chebe does admit that he's not really connected with anyone per se. Like, yeah, Heejin's there, but it's still nothing more has happened. And he does admit to feeling a little bad that he's not been able to, talk or have some more dates and all. So they just ended it with like cheering each other on, like, you got this, fighting and all like that. So next on our list then is Sujin, and Hyeyeon and Youngkyu enter the room. And basically Hyeyeon is also getting like, the coverage on like who do you like and all kind of like that. And of course, Mr. Popular Sungho got 4 entries. One was Sungho, of course, one was Youngkyu also, one of course again was Hyeyeon, and lastly was Chebe, because he's not entered any room, so he has to enter some room. God damn it, Chebe. So after all the anonymous rooms and chattings is like over, you have to pick again your pick, like the one who interested you the most, like at the end of the day. So Hyeyeon ended up liking Sungho. Sujin of course stuck with Heejin. Chebe chose Youngkyu. Youngkyu chose Sungho. Yunche chose Heejin. Jinwoo chose Sungho. Sungho chose Jinwoo, and Heejin chose Sujin. So the people who didn't get chosen were again Chebe and Yunche, And to a surprise, Hyeyeon did not get chosen by anyone because, as stated by Sungho, the date didn't really have a spark in it. Whereas she spoke really well of the date, being like, "Oh, we became a lot closer." So that was definitely interesting. That's a lot of drama. My girl Heejin finally voted for my girl Sujin, so that's a good thing. We are progressing in the right way. So after all the anonymous chat rooms and the voting and everything is done, they decide to sit down for just like a drinking session and all like that, where they play the game Spin the Bottle and Truth or Dare. Sujin asks Hyeyeon, "Hey, out of both the days that you've had, which one do you prefer?" So Hyeyeon ends up drinking is because no one voted for her. So clearly Sungho, like, she feels like the date has gone bad, which it didn't really go bad. It's just like he didn't feel a spark, which apparently he did with Jinwoo. I don't see it again, but that's a different conversation. So she didn't really want to reveal that because Sungho is a love interest for her after all, and he's more of a priority for her. So Sungho ends up also asking Hyeyeon that if the gender restriction was not there, would she have still picked him? Which she does reply, "Yes, I would have still picked you." So that's interesting for him to hear. It's like nice for him to hear. Although you didn't feel any spark, why is it nice for you? Stop playing with emotions. And then after Spin the Bottle, so that everyone gets a chance to question and answer and whatever, they do it like individually. So actually in this round is when tensions started to grow even more, because questions were being asked. Like for example, Chebe was asked the question that, okay, so you are like, you chose someone, right? Who did you choose? And not who did you choose, like, was that person your roommate? So they were just like, oh, he's not going to answer, he's like just going to drink. And after some time he does answer that yes, it was in fact a roommate. And the thing is, previously he had mentioned within the game itself that he is more inclined to choose like a male in terms of a date. So it's kind of obvious. It's not a direct hit, but it's an indirect hit that yeah, he voted for Youngkyu. So it's like a kind of confession that ended up happening. So like tensions arise there, where he in fact feels more uncomfortable rather than comfortable that the confession has come out. Because in my opinion, he's not really interested in Youngkyu. He just finds him kind and nice. So it was kind of uncomfortable in the sense of, I know he probably did it under the influence of alcohol because they're all drinking, right? Because he is not going full in, so that's why he's a little uncomfortable. If it was like full in, then I feel like he would not been that uncomfortable. Then there was tensions obviously between Sungho and Hyeyeon in general, because like she didn't get a vote, so clearly like what is happening and all. So yeah, tensions keep arising because of this, and they all return to their rooms. And Heejin, once like she gets in a corner with Hyeyeon, she kind of confronts her, because I guess the alcohol brings out the confidence, and being like, "You didn't join my chat room, did you?" So Hyeyeon obviously like doesn't really say it, but yeah, she did not join Heejin's chat room. Another thing that comes to light is that's what I had mentioned before, like a lot of not a lot of, but the lying starts to come in, lying to save personal interest. So even I'm not going to like shit on only Hyeyeon. Like even Sujin technically lied, because she actually had lied to Heejin, being like, "Oh, I have two love interests," because so she didn't want her to figure out that like she's the direct love interest. So she also lied that, being like, "Oh, I have two love interests and both are girls, ha ha ha." But yeah, so even Hyeyeon ended up lying, where so she ended up saying that she chose a woman, and but it was not computing, because Heejin was doing the math in her head. That Hyeyeon kept saying that, "Oh, Heejin, you are an interest of mine," but she votes for Sungho, and like it's kind of like that. Heejin ends up mentioning that there's certain a light bulb moment happened with her, where all the interest just immediately vanished, because Heejin comes across as a person that like she really values honesty, and she doesn't like being led on, which in my opinion, that is why she's the perfect match for Sujin, because Sujin is the kind of person that will tell, because in the show per se there are regulations where I assume that they can't directly tell the person that, hey, I like you. That's why she's not telling. But Sujin had mentioned that she is the kind of person to pursue, like she will continue pursuing. Heejin completely gets turned off by Aeon, and she does not like see her in her love interest at all. And that is kind of how we close the day, like because they're all tired and drunk and all that, right? And that's how we move on to the next day. So I feel like Sungho, Hyeyeon and Jinwoo are really kind of people who like to have other people interested in them, but they don't actually consider the feelings of the other person. Like they like that other people are like coming to them and being like, "Oh, I have so many people, haha," but they like leading on. That's what like completely changed Heejin's opinion of Hyeyeon, that because she doesn't like that leading on. So that is where I feel like they are slightly flawed in that way. and that's why honestly they are perfect for each other in that way. And basically the episode ends with a new mission being introduced, being a yes and no mission. Yes and no being like, you need to choose between yes and no. Yes is basically a kind of thing that you want to be the one asking for a date, whereas no is kind of being like you want to wait for someone to ask you out on a date. And that is how the episode ends. No teaser, no nothing, just the mission is introduced, and I'm so pissed. But hopefully, because I know Sujin will choose yes, so please, god damn it, please, Heejin, don't please choose like going on a date, because she's not going to go on a date with Hyeyeon. But I don't feel that connection with Sungho, so hopefully she goes on a date with Sujin because she chose her as an option. Let me know your thoughts. What are your rankings? Who are you getting pissed? So yeah, do let us know what your thoughts are, and do like, share, and subscribe to the Namaste Hallyu YouTube channel. And we'll see you all next time. Annyeong.